how good was Alain Delon in his prime? When Alain Delon died in August 2024, tributes rolled in from every corner of the world. French President Macron called him a monument. Directors praised his technique. Film critics wrote essays about his influence. But here's the question nobody's actually answering. Was he really that good? Or was he just a gorgeous face who got lucky in the right decade? The guy had zero formal training, never studied method acting, never took a class. He learned everything from one director who told him 5 sentences on a film set. So, how does someone with no background become so influential that Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, and John Woo are still copying his style 50 years later? The answer is going to surprise you, because what made Delon great wasn't what he did. It was what he didn't do. Let's start with the technique, because that's where greatness lives. 1960, Delon's shooting Purple Noon, his first major role. Director René Clément pulls him aside and teaches him something that will define his entire career. He calls it the look. The concept is simple, but revolutionary. You can tell an entire story with your eyes if you eliminate everything else. No big gestures, no theatrical expressions, no obvious emotion, just stillness, presence, control. Clément shows him how to let the camera do half the work. Hold a gaze 1 second longer than normal. Tension builds. Wait an extra beat before responding. Power shifts. Move less. Every movement carries more weight. Look at him playing Tom Ripley. He doesn't play the sociopath with menace or obvious villainy. He plays it with curiosity, cold observation. There's a yacht scene where he's supposed to be relaxing, but his eyes never stop tracking Maurice Ronet's Philippe. Every gesture Philippe makes, Delon's Ripley catalogs it, studies it, files it away. He's reverse engineering the life he wants to steal, and Delon communicates all of that without a single line explaining his thoughts. Critics immediately noticed something different. They called it beautiful blankness. His face revealed nothing, and that nothingness was magnetic. You couldn't look away because you kept trying to figure out what he was thinking. Other actors of that era gave you everything. James Dean twisted his face through 1,000 emotions. Marlon Brando used his whole body. Delon did the opposite. He subtracted, reduced, stripped away everything unnecessary. Purple Noon sold 2.44 million tickets in France. For a 24-year-old with no training, those numbers don't lie. But if you think that was just beginner's luck, what happened next proved he had something nobody else could replicate. Luchino Visconti cast Delon in Rocco and His Brothers, a sprawling family epic about Italian immigrants struggling in Milan. The role was completely different. Rocco is gentle, self-sacrificing, emotionally vulnerable. Lesser actors would have panicked and changed everything. But Delon didn't abandon his technique. He still used stillness. He still trusted minimalism. He just adjusted the temperature. With Ripley, the stillness was cold, predatory. With Rocco, the stillness becomes warm, patient. A man absorbing suffering because he believes that's his duty. Pay attention to the scene where his brother confesses to murdering the woman Rocco loved. Delon barely moves. His face stays almost neutral, but you feel the devastation. You see his world collapsing in the way his shoulders drop half an inch, the way his breath catches for a fraction of a second. Most actors would have been crying, yelling. Delon makes you feel the grief by holding it in. The film won the special jury prize at Venice. Visconti said he cast Delon because he saw no separation between the actor's real pain and the character's suffering. Then came The Leopard in 1963, and this proved Delon could operate at the highest level. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It finished 6th at the French box office with 3.69 million admissions. Mainstream dominance. Delon plays Tancredi, a charming opportunist navigating the collapse of Sicilian aristocracy. Focus on the ballroom scene. Delon dances with Claudia Cardinale through a sea of aristocrats. He's making small talk, but his eyes are scanning the room, tracking power shifts. Then he whispers something in her ear, and in that moment, you see Tancredi simultaneously seducing a woman and calculating how her family's wealth can secure his future, all while waltzing, all while looking like he's barely paying attention. By 1963, Delon had worked with two of the greatest filmmakers in cinema and delivered three completely different performances using the same core approach. And if that sounds impressive, wait until you see what he did with almost no dialogue at all. Jean-Pierre Melville hands Delon the script for Le Samouraï. Melville later admitted he didn't just write it with Delon in mind. He was inspired by Delon. He'd watched the actor on set, noticed his economy of movement, his precision. He built an entire character around it. The film opens with one of cinema's most iconic shots. Jeff lying on a bed in a dark apartment, cigarette smoke curling, a caged bird in the corner, rain hammering outside. For the first 10 minutes, almost no dialogue. We observe him prepare for a job, putting on white gloves, testing keys methodically, walking through night streets in a trench coat and fedora. Every movement is precise, ritualistic. There's no wasted energy. Notice how he enters the nightclub where his target is. He doesn't sneak. He walks in like he belongs, moves through the crowd without drawing attention. The whole sequence teaches you everything about Jeff Costello without a word of exposition. Later, the famous police lineup scene. Jeff stands among dozens of suspects while witnesses try to identify him. He's completely still, not fidgeting, not sweating, not trying to look innocent. He's just there, existing. And that stillness is more compelling than any protestation could be. The witnesses can't identify him because he's made himself into a blank. This is Delon's technique at its limit. The film sold 1.9 million tickets in France, but numbers can't capture cultural impact. Richard Gere was preparing for American Gigolo, and director Paul Schrader told him, "Study this guy. The way he walks. He knows the room is a better place just because he's walked into it." The film influenced everyone, from John Woo's Hong Kong action films to Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog to Nicolas Winding Refn's Drive. The template Delon created became the blueprint for the cool, silent antihero that dominates cinema today. By 1969, Delon was at peak power. La Piscine reunited him with ex-lover Romy Schneider in a psychological thriller. The sexual tension between them is volcanic because it's real. Borsalino paired him with Jean-Paul Belmondo as gangsters. Le Cercle Rouge in 1970 gave him another Melville masterpiece. He was the highest-paid actor in France, international icon. Every major director wanted to work with him. But here's the real question. How did he actually do it? Because if we're going to call someone great, we need to understand the machinery behind the magic. Let's break down the 8 pillars of Delon's technique. First, stillness. He cut movement by half compared to other actors. The audience's eye naturally goes to the person moving least. Every movement he did make carried 10 times the weight. Second, angles. He understood camera placement and lighting. He'd tilt his head to sharpen his jawline or deepen eyeshadow. Third, timing. He'd wait 1 beat longer than expected before responding. That extra breath created tension. Fourth, eye control. He could hold a stare without blinking, making his gaze penetrating. Or drop his eyes at exactly the right moment to suggest vulnerability. Fifth, wardrobe as architecture. Narrow lapels drew the eye to his face. Clean shoulders created strong silhouettes. Hats that could hide or reveal. Every piece served a purpose beyond fashion. Sixth, economy of expression. Where other actors used their whole face, Delon would shift just his eyes or tighten his jaw by a millimeter. The subtlety forced the audience to watch more carefully. Seventh, strategic partnering. He chose directors who valued silence, cinematographers who let close-ups breathe, co-stars who could match his minimalism. He built an ecosystem around his technique. And eighth, absolute conviction. He believed the camera would find him if he became the calmest, most controlled point in any scene. Military precision from his Marine days merged with artistic instinct. Nothing wasted, nothing unnecessary. Think that's just theory? The receipts tell a different story. Purple Noon in 1960, 244 million admissions in France. International breakthrough. The Leopard in 1963, Palme d'Or at Cannes, 3.69 million admissions, 6th highest grossing film of the year. Critical acclaim and commercial dominance in one package. Le Samouraï in 1967, 1.9 million admissions, But more importantly, it influenced generations of filmmakers. Scorsese studied Rocco fight choreography for Raging Bull, used Jeff Costello as a template for Travis Bickle, a role originally offered to Delon. John Woo wrote essays about Le Samouraï for Criterion Collection. Tarantino referenced Delon constantly. Winding Refn cited Le Samouraï as the primary influence on Drive. Fashion designers from Yves Saint Laurent to Hedi Slimane cited his style. Men's magazines still reference Le Samouraï as the gold standard. In 2019, Cannes gave him an honorary Palme d'Or. When he died in 2024, tributes came from every major director. The proof isn't subjective. It's documented, measurable, undeniable. But while audiences were falling in love with the performance, nobody knew what was happening behind the scenes. And what they'd eventually discover would make people question everything. October 1968, Stefan Marković, Delon's bodyguard, is found murdered. A letter surfaces. If I get clelled, it's 100% the fault of Alain Delon and his godfather, François Marcantoni. The scandal explodes. Police question Delon repeatedly. The investigation pulls in testimony about alleged parties, compromising photographs, potential blackmail. Then it jumps to the highest levels of French government. Georges Pompidou, future president, and his wife get dragged into allegations. The media goes insane. Industry insiders predict his career is over, but Delon is never charged. And instead of destroying him, the scandal makes him more famous. The Sicilian Clan box office explodes. Audiences realize the danger on screen isn't entirely performance. In interviews, Delon says casually, "Most of the gangsters I know were my friends before I became an actor." That refusal to apologize only deepened his mystique. Then there's the wreckage he left with women. Romy Schneider, his fiancée from 1958 to 1963. He cheated repeatedly. The engagement ended. She never fully recovered. In 1981, her son dead in a freak accident. Less than a year later, Romy was found dead at 43. Cardiac arrest. Everyone said she died of a broken heart. Nico, the singer, claimed Delon fathered her son Ari in 1962. He denied it his entire life, but Ari looked exactly like him. Delon's own mother raised the boy. For 60 years, Ari begged for recognition. Never got it, dead of a heroin overdose. In 2023, still claiming Delon was his father. His marriage to Nathalie Barthélemy produced son Anthony, but Delon destroyed it with affairs. In interviews, he admitted he'd slapped women, stated it matter-of-factly, without apology. Later came his relationship with Rosalie Van Bremen. 2 more children, Anouchka and Alain Fabien. That ended badly in 2001. The pattern was unmistakable. Delon left destruction wherever he went, and if you think that's where the controversy ends, his politics made it even uglier. A 50-year friendship with far-right leader Jean-Marie Le Pen, public support for the death penalty, opposition to same-sex marriage. When politician Nadine Morano declared France a white race country, Delon defended her. She has the BLLs to say it. I don't give a shat. I say what I think. When Cannes announced his 2019 honorary award, feminist groups protested. His sons had accused him of domestic violence. The man was as controversial off-screen as he was magnetic on it. The final years were brutal. June 2019, a massive stroke left him weakened. July 2023, his 3 children filed a complaint against his companion Hiromi Roland, accusing her of harassment and manipulation. She was evicted. Then in January 2024, the siblings turned on each other. Anthony accused Anouchka of hiding their father's condition. Lawsuits flew. Delon was placed under guardianship. Anthony revealed his father had lymphoma. Then April 2024, police raided the estate. They found 72 illegal firearms and 3,000 rounds of ammunition. By August 2024, he was dead at 88. The 2025 Oscars left him out of their in memoriam segment entirely. So how do we reconcile this? You measure them separately, but acknowledge they're connected. Alain Delon's technique was revolutionary. He created a style of screen presence that didn't exist before. Stillness as power, silence as dialogue, minimalism as intensity. The 8 pillars: stillness, angles, timing, eye control, wardrobe, economy, partnering, conviction. These were a system that produced consistent results. across different directors and decades. He influenced Scorsese, Tarantino, Wu, Fincher, and entire generations who came after. The box office numbers, awards, documented influence, all prove his skill was real and measurable. He was technically brilliant, one of the greatest screen actors of the 20th century. But the man who created that brilliance, he was cold, potentially violent, politically extreme. He abandoned a son, he broke women, he surrounded himself with criminals and never apologized. And maybe that darkness is why his performances feel so authentic. The void critics saw, the beautiful blankness, the dangerous stillness, none of that was a trick. It was real. He wasn't pretending to be a sociopath playing Tom Ripley. He was showing you parts of himself. He wasn't acting dangerous as Jeff Costello. He was dangerous, and he let the camera capture it. So when we ask, how good was Alain Delon in his prime? The answer depends on what we're measuring. Technical skill, mastery, innovation, influence. He was extraordinary, top tier, one of the greatest to ever do it. The technique was sound. The results were measurable. The impact is still felt. But the man behind the performances, he was a disaster. Morally compromised, personally destructive, and you can't fully separate those things. His darkness informed his art. The blankness wasn't manufactured. The coldness wasn't a choice. That was him, a man who believed presence mattered. More than warmth. Success mattered more than happiness. Control mattered more than connection. His films, Le Samouraï, Purple Noon, The Leopard, Rocco, La Piscine, they're masterpieces. The technique he pioneered will influence actors for generations. His legacy in cinema is secure, undeniable, permanent, but monuments cast shadows, and his shadow is long and dark. The same qualities that made him great on screen made him destructive off it. So here's the final answer. Alain Delon in his prime was as good as any actor has ever been. The technique was revolutionary. The influence was massive. The proof is overwhelming. But that greatness came with a cost that the people closest to him paid. Greatness and goodness aren't the same thing. Brilliance doesn't equal humanity. So the next time you watch Le Samouraï, pay attention to those moments of stillness. Ask yourself what you're actually seeing. Is it acting, or is it something more unsettling? A window into a man who understood that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun. It's the ability to become nothing, to present no target, to exist as pure surface with no visible depth. Delon mastered that on screen, and maybe he lived it off screen too. The question isn't whether he was good. The question is whether being that good was worth what it cost everyone around him.